Thank you all for staying and being a part of our conversation, which we have titled here, Pre-K to the Workforce. And I'm glad, thank you for moving over a little bit, because this is really a chance for us to have a conversation about this particular topic. And I know that your heads might be swimming a little bit. Let me just say, after the presentations of my colleagues, my head was swimming, thinking about trying to process all of the data points and the trends and the comparisons across time and across geographic areas. So it's part of the reason that we're having these smaller group discussions is so that we can have a chance together to process the information that we are reading about today, but also to bring in some people who have been thinking about these issues for many years, if not many decades. So, and I say that in a very good way. Experts. We have the best here, truly, the best of the best on our panel today. So let me briefly introduce all of our panelists. And we have asked each of our panelists to give some brief remarks about their perspectives of the education workforce pipeline here in the Lehigh Valley. And we've also asked them to talk about the many different things that they are doing to help to address some of the problems that you saw today that were illuminated by Sabrina and by Rob. You realize that we are have some very deep inequalities here that cross not only income lines, but gender and race and ethnicity lines. And we do have a lot of work that is being done to help to reduce those inequalities. But yet, as you see, there's still a far way for us to go. So after they're finished with their brief remarks, that is really the opportunity for us to have a conversation about what this means. And what we certainly want to hear as well is what your organizations are doing to try and think about these issues and these issues specific to the focus on inequality and disparity. So we really want this to be a community conversation about this particular topic. So, with that in mind, we're going to start with our early years and are thinking about pre-K. And with us today, we have Jane Ervin. And Jane is the CEO and president of Community Services for Children. And I'm sure that many of you know Jane and all of the good work that she has been doing in the Lehigh Valley, particularly in the last years with regard to pre-K education. We're very sad that Jane has announced her retirement to spend time with her own grandchildren. But we know that certainly, Jane, your legacy of working with kids in the Lehigh Valley is going to last for many, many generations. So it's, all good. Next, we have Luke Shafnisky, and Luke has the challenging job of being the principal for Allen High School. And as you heard from the discussion of Rob's data points, we know that we have some challenges at Allen, and Luke and his team are working very, very hard with the community to try and address some of the issues that were brought up in today's report. So we'll be hearing from Luke. And next we have Bieber. Ann is pretty recently was made the president of the Lehigh Carbon Community Colleges. And see how we have everybody in order? We actually thought about this. So Ann is the connector between Luke and the workforce work and economic development work that is going on in the Lehigh Valley. So Ann can speak from a very unique perspective that she shares, trying to take the students from our public schools and move them into successful employment through their training and education at our community college. So thank you, Ann. And then finally, we have Nancy Dischinat. And Nancy has been working very, very hard for many, many years on issues of workforce and how we can invest in our workforce, how we can train our current students for future jobs that we don't even know what those future jobs are going to be. So how do we link our workforce and our future workforce to our education system today? Nancy is not only an expert here in the Valley, but she is an expert across the country. And in fact, she's going to be she has been invited to give presentations, one coming up at the Federal Reserve Board of Philadelphia. I got an email to invite me to come see Nancy down in Philly, but so we got her here. So she can talk about, give us kind of a little preview of what she'll be talking about down in Philadelphia. And she's also going to be going out to central Pennsylvania as well to talk about some of the initiatives that are going on here in the Lehigh Valley. So we're very grateful to have all of these experts here to give us their perspectives. So Jane, would you like to kick it off?
Sure, thank you. Sure, thank you, Michele. It's great to be here. Good morning, everyone. Here are some words that no one wants to hear. The United States of America is behind the rest of the world in education, and we're struggling to catch up with other countries. Our children are not being as well educated as children in South Korea, Japan, China, India, and many countries in Europe. These are countries with whom we compete for talented employees, for creative ideas, for military strength, and for democratic societies. How did we get behind, and what can we do to stop this, or to start this, I guess, to start the change? But businesses need employees who are job ready, team capable, and well prepared. But our statistics show that we're not getting them. The majority of 4th and 8th graders in Pennsylvania and across the nation are not proficient in math and reading. In 2012, US 15-year-olds ranked 27th among 34 developed countries in math, 17th in reading, and 20th in science. And 72% of Pennsylvanians ages 17 to 34 would not qualify to serve in the U.S. military. This is a trend that is reversible if we start early. When children are born between birth and 5 years old, their brains are rapidly developing. In fact, 700 synapses in the brain are being created every second of a child's life as they're growing. And if you think about the difference between a newborn baby and a 5-year-old, you can see how much a brain would have to develop for a kid to get to that level of ability. Walking, talking, language, thinking, and all the things that go along with that. So if a child grows up in a very low income, very at-risk home, if they're subject to a lot of stresses, if they're hungry, if they're cold, if they're not medically cared for, they're not going to develop well, and their brains are going to be impacted. So if we start when children are very young and start to provide opportunities for them to develop their brains, by the time they get to kindergarten and to the K-12 system, they will be ready to learn. And right now we have what I consider to be an upside-down pyramid of spending on education. We spend practically nothing on children between birth and 5, when I'm talking public dollars. And that's the time when children are most vulnerable and most receptive to learning and developing and being prepared for when they get to school. I hope we get an opportunity to talk further about some of the activities that are going on in the pre-K world right now that are helping to change this format. But suffice it to say, here in the Lehigh Valley, we do have a strong pre-K system, and we partner with the 3 folks that you see sitting at the table here, which is the way it needs to work. We all have to work together in order to change the dynamics and improve education across the Lehigh Valley.
Thanks, Jane.
Thank you. Again, my name is Luke Shafnisky. I'm the principal of William Allen High School. And as we saw in Dr. Root's presentation, I am that little mark all the way to the left at the bottom. Before I begin, 2 apologies. 1, I'm recovering from bronchitis, so my voice is terrible. And number 2, I suffer from extreme stage fright, so I sweat a whole lot. Usually I can blame it on pacing back and forth on the stage, but they have me in a panel with these 3 lovely ladies, so I'll be stuck here. As I see in education as it relates to today, there are two key issues. One of them is the focus on testing. The other one is on the finances and funding. I'm not a funding expert, so I won't be talking about that very much, but I'll talk a little bit about that focus on testing. As you may have heard, AYP has been replaced by SPP. That is adequate yearly progress, where you move students up on their testing as they go each year, has now been replaced by a more comprehensive school performance profile, where schools receive basically a grade out of 100 points as to how well they're doing meeting several different objectives. That said, 90% of that is testing, whether it's reading, math, science, or growth in those areas. We do receive some points for attendance, for graduation, for participation as well. This testing and focus on scores not only affects our schools, it affects our individual teachers as it's part of their evaluations, and it also affects our students. For those students in the class of 2017, they need to demonstrate proficiency on 3 Keystone exams, a reading, a math, and a science, or they will not be able to graduate. So this emphasis, this urgency becomes all the more greater that these students, and as we saw in that report, there is that strong correlation between inequality and testing that we need to be able to make sure these students are able to reach their potential. As I mentioned, the SPP includes the test performance, the growth. We're very happy that that's included, and also our graduation rate factor, which we continue to work to improve, but as it remains is only 62% for those students entering high school and graduating for 4 years. So there remains a lot of work to be done. Fortunately, in the Allentown School District, our board has recognized that students are more than just test scores, and is focused on the whole child in terms of providing social and emotional learning, in terms of providing safety nets for students, along with directing them down whichever pathway to success meets their needs and their goals, whether it's going on to college, whether it's joining the workforce, whether it's developing an internship, or even just becoming a strong provider to the family at home. I'd like to tell you a little bit more about William Allen High School. We have decreased greatly from our maximum enrollment of about 3,700 about 10 years ago down to about 2,700 students now. And that is based on students moving out of the district and also those students attending charter schools. That said, our demographics, we are about 65% Hispanic, about 20% African American, about 15% Caucasian. 85% of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, and 60% of them experience some sort of mobility at some point in their educational career, whether it's transferring out of the district and back in, or transferring from one school in the district to the next. But some of the good things that we do provide for them at Allen in terms of athletics, we offer 17 advanced placement classes. We offer about a dozen dual enrollment classes with L-Tri-C. We have strong supports for our ESOL students, which average about 17% of the population, and also about 17% of our students are special education students, so we work for them as well. We do have a strong focus on the arts and academies in there, whether it's theater and the plays that you'd see in the fall and the spring. Our dance academy puts on a concert. We have music with a chorale and a new a cappella group. So we're trying to keep kids focused and involved in athletics as well as the arts. Activities and clubs provide another opportunity for connections to the community, whether it's through ROTC, debate, journalism, the yearbook, and so on and so on. One of my key focuses as becoming principal just a little bit over a year ago has been building the culture and the connections to the community. And we've been able to do that reaching out to organizations like communities in schools, Pyramid Healthcare to provide mental health services within our building, to St. Luke's Hospital for health services and also mentoring opportunities, reaching out to the Scouts, to local churches, and pretty much any organization, and especially those LVAIC schools that we like to work with as a proud Muhlenberg graduate and Lehigh graduate. I like to make those connections as well. We continue to reach up to L-Tri-C and also the Lehigh Workforce Investment Board, and we can talk a little bit about that more later, and also down to the middle schools and elementary schools to create that strong K through 12 connection for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Luke.
That's great. And I call it the K to 16 pathway, which I really believe the Lehigh Valley has an outstanding K to 16 education and career pathway. The beauty of the pathway is that there's multiple entry and exit points for the students to get off and on throughout their lifetime to customize that pathway, earn stackable credentials where they can transfer the credits seamlessly along that path. But the importance to a seamless pathway are strong partnerships. And I wanted to talk about 3 of those partnerships this morning, to highlight 3 of them. The first partnership that I think is very important is the school districts, career and technical institutes, and the community colleges. And there's a series of initiatives, and Luke referenced one of those, that help to make this pathway seamless for the students. And one is dual enrollment. We know across the state of Pennsylvania that about 11,000 high school students take dual enrollment courses, and they can take them as early as 9th grade. This allows them to gain that confidence, to know that they're college ready and they can succeed, to explore college opportunities and careers, as well as to shorten the time they need for their associate degree. So it's very important, our relationships with our school districts, career and technical institutes, and that community college, so that we can bridge that transition. The other initiative is just that, bridge programs. And we have academic and enrichment opportunities in bridge programs to help the students as they transition from secondary to post-secondary. And the objective is to help them be successful in that, on their pathway. The second partnership, which is very important, is between the community colleges and our 4-year colleges and universities. We know that in the state of Pennsylvania, about 34,000 students transfer each year from community colleges to 4-year public as well as private colleges. And so the tighter and the stronger our partnership is, the more seamless that pathway will be for the students. It's very important, as we all know, that they transition and don't lose any credits. A couple of initiatives there are articulation agreements. There's almost 3,000 articulation agreements across the state of Pennsylvania with the community colleges and the 4-year colleges and universities. They provide a roadmap for the students. It allows the students to know, okay, if I take this course, it'll be transferable. I won't lose any credit. So that's very important. Another initiative are the reverse transfer degrees, because we know that about 30% of the community college students leave before they finish their associate degree. So as they go to their 4-year colleges and universities, they can continue to take their courses, transfer them back to the community college, and earn their associate degree while they're working on their bachelor's degree. So it's another very important partnership that allows for the students to have those stackable credentials. Because if it takes them longer to finish their bachelor's degree, at least they'll have their associate's degree. And the third partnership, which is very important, as we all know, is with the post-secondary institutions and our business community. It's very important for us to understand the talent that's currently needed and needed in the future, so that they have an input into curriculum development, that we're assured that we're training the students that meet on equipment that meets the industry expectations, on the industry certifications and assessments, internships, mentoring opportunities. All of it is critical to ensure that our students are meeting the needs and they're ready to work at the workforce. So, as we all know, post-secondary success leads to economic opportunities, and it's the partnerships. I've seen them, been in education 30 plus years, and I think the partnerships are stronger than ever, and that's what is allowing for this seamless pathway that we continue to work on, and we know we have work to do. So thanks.
Thank you, Ann.
Oh, you are all way too serious this morning. I'm like crazy. I do have a lot of handouts, and we'll get them out to you after if you'd like any of the handouts we have. We have 15,200 employers in the Lehigh Valley. The average employer in the Lehigh Valley has 18 employees. 11,000 employers have 9 or fewer workers. The average wage is $943 a week. Our population is 655,000. 336,000 of us are working. 318,000 are employed. We have a 30 billion gross regional national product. We have 17 school districts, 3 career and technical schools, 2 fantastic community colleges, and 9 colleges and universities enrolling more than 50,000 students. We have 16% of our population over 65, 12% of our population between the ages of 25 and 34. Our median household income is $57,090. We have 11% of families living below poverty, and on and on and on. And you have more data in the book they gave you today than you're ever going to need in your life. So I'll talk about something else. Just to show you, we have a snapshot for you of what we look like, who we are, and understand what our community looks like before we can develop a community college and a school and care for children. It's knowing your community well. And you all have jobs at Lehigh Valley's over 15,000 employers. You're all helping to grow business and be part of the workforce. And you're innovative, and your income is commensurate with your skills, education, and talents, right? You're getting paid based on what you think you should be getting paid, right? Work is and will continue to be at jobs commensurate with your skills, education, and talent. The education to workforce pipeline does not necessarily mean having a 4-year college degree. I shouldn't say that here, but although all data indicates that the pathway, the return on that investment of going to college pays. Having a 4-year degree as people begin their career is only one pathway, but not always the best pathway for everyone. You know many people that are hands-on, technically, they're like fixers. They know they also need continuing education. We call that kind of education what? Training, right? It's still education, a technical education career pathway for individuals. And if you know me, I talk all the time about the fact that the new high school degree is an associate's degree. What is the first year of community college? Remediation. It's the most sought after class at a community college. As workers, we not only need to be smarter, but we need to be more skilled. It's not one way or the other anymore. This way or the, it's a song, isn't it? Okay. Our goal in workforce development is that every worker in the Lehigh Valley has at least an associate's degree or higher. That is one of the best economic development tools the Lehigh Valley can have, an educated and qualified workforce, right? Yes. Okay. As a workforce practitioner, I have strong feelings about the strengths and opportunities and weaknesses and challenges in helping move our workforce from pre-K to a successful career. But I have to add that the workforce pipeline does not run continuously from pre-K to higher ed. There are many off-ramps during this pipeline development and many on-ramps of people coming in and out of our workforce at all ages. And we don't educate and train the entire workforce. They come from all over the country, and now they come from all over the world. That makes a big difference. And they're all different ages. One direction does not always work. We need to continuously design flexible education and training options. And I think we work at that very hard. Our strengths are we have and we use data. A simple process, but an effective process. We know the demographics of the people from pre-K through older workers, and we continue to build education and training options based on the data. We are all data-driven. We have 17 school districts, 3 career and technical schools, 2 community colleges, and 9 universities of higher education. We have career pathways that are now working to institutionalize career pathways based on where jobs are. We We have articulation agreements like Dan talked about. We are intertwined. We have moved from cooperation to integration. And that's real important when you look at a panel like this. What matters in the workforce to me at the end result is what Jane's doing in pre-K at the beginning. Because if they're not ready to go where Luke is, they're not certainly going to get where Ann is. And then I get them. And I don't want them. I want them once they've gone through that pattern and they've come here into other schools. The other thing is we also have a great alignment between workforce development and education. We are a triangle of partners. We have squared that triangle because community partners are so valuable anymore to our community. Our opportunities within pre-K to careers involves all of us, like I said. Our weaknesses, though, I want to talk a little bit about our weaknesses. Are there in the connection between jobs and skill requirements and the pathways to work and in the pathways to upward mobility in the job and in career awareness? We do not know what to be next. We don't know what to be many times. And once we lose our jobs, which you're going to, you don't know what to be next. And we need to continue to rejuvenate ourselves and to retool ourselves. Therefore, our skills always have to be refreshed. Our challenges are really wrapped up in the continuous dance between understand business and industries, hard and soft skill requirements, and employment. So, to do the employment dance, you need to start learning early and never stop.
Thank you very much. Thank you all. At this time, we have an opportunity to ask questions of our panelists who did a wonderful job putting together the connection between the four individuals. And questions about the report. We have some report authors here, reflections on the report, reflections on where your perspective is with regard to this. I appreciate it. The pathway, truly.
If you don't mind too, if you'll raise your hand, I'll come around with the mic so that the panelists are able to hear your question.
Hello, good morning. I am assistant dean over at Moravian College. Her name is Lakeisha Thorpe. When I look at the data that was up on the board, up on the screen, it's disheartening to me because I am the antithesis of that data. I am in a doctoral program. Obviously, I have a master's. Obviously, I didn't know if you knew, I'm black. So it's really scary to me to see how skewed that data is in comparison to who I am every day as I go to work. Because when most people would look at me, and not making an assumption, I mean using the data, you would think, oh, single mom, oh, not a lot of education, bad job, not a lot of money, how unfortunate. And that's not me. So when I turn to the panel now as someone who has taught dual enrollment for LTRI-C at William Allen and has seen some of the struggles, as someone who has godchildren who are of Hispanic and African American descent and first generation Caribbean descent that are having struggles at that very crucial area that Jane discussed, I really want to know what we're doing. Because obviously I'm the exception. I chose to teach at William Allen because I wanted them to see, hey, look, that's someone that looks like me that's doing that. And if I look in this room, I don't see a lot of people who look like me, yet I was able to kind of combat that and do that. I don't care if everyone in the room is white, green, purple, yellow, or African American like me. I have a job and the job will be done. But they're not growing up with that sensibility. So I think that while we're saying, yes, it's great, we've got to start them when they're young and get that education into them, there are other socioeconomic and cultural issues that aren't being addressed, and I want to know what's being done outside of the classroom to combat those things so that when they get in the classroom, those things are less of a concern. That was a long, drawn-out thing, but I hope you got the question.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a very awesome question for you to ask. How about if any of the panelists want to address that? But then I think her question was also if there are other things in the community that are happening that others would like to share as well. I think that would be very useful for all of us.
I will start, and thank you for your excellent comments, and congratulations to you. Unfortunately, in the Lehigh Valley right now, well, actually in the Lehigh Valley, there are children, the poverty rate among young children is much higher than the poverty rate among the normal population. We're at about 26% of children are in poverty in Lehigh County for sure and across the Lehigh Valley. That's a lot. But we're only able to serve 12% of the children eligible for services under Head Start, Early Head Start, Pre-K Counts, those sort of programs. So what happens is some of the children, those lucky few who get these opportunities, do great. They get to kindergarten ready to learn. But it's only 15% of them or 14% of them. The other 85% are not ready. So, of course, the kindergarten programs have to be designed in order to meet the needs of the 85%. And so the children who do have great opportunities, that's going to serve them well going forward, but it's not enough. It's not to scale. So what we need to do is scale up the number of children, especially in low-income school districts like Allentown, and serve 100% of the children in high-quality early learning before they get to kindergarten. Because then the kindergarten teachers will be teaching at a higher level. And then the first grade teachers will be teaching at a higher level, and on it goes. So that's how you start the process of improvement. You have to start young and you have to scale up.
Oh, I agree completely with that. And as an aside, thank you for coming to William Allen to serve those students. Unfortunately, it is very small percentage of our students, and we are working to increase that. But as you said, it has to dip down farther because we need to make sure that the students are prepared. We need to make sure that in elementary school, they are already looking to that idea that through the opportunities in this district that they can earn an associate's degree through dual enrollment before they graduate, that's an option, that I'm not waiting for students that are going into 11th and 12th grade and trying to suck them into that and then support them because they don't have the background and skills that they need to be successful at that level. We really need to build it farther down. And as Jane said, it's a lot of it is providing those other services, getting them that great head start. One of the things that we're doing to ensure academic success of all students, not just those enrolled in the higher program, is really trying to meet their social, their emotional, their mental health needs through connections with community partners, often bringing those organizations into the school. We know many times if a student has a counseling appointment after school, but they need to babysit for a younger sibling, they're not going to make it there. So if we can get that organization to the school, we can get that student to the appointment during the day, that is going to make a tremendous difference, and that is going to enable them to focus on the success in the classroom.
Some of you may remember the late Senator James Rhodes, and he really spearheaded an initiative because he had a vision for the at-risk students. And his focus at the time was Carbon and Schuylkill counties. And so for the past 10 years, our college has had a program we refer to as the SHINE program. And the statistics are phenomenal that have impacted these 3,000 at-risk students in after-school programs. And the governor has taken a look at the program, and I understand he'll be coming up in the next few weeks to see it because it's a model that he'd like to use throughout the state. But it's to all the points that you talked about, whether it's the urban or the rural. The at-risk students, we can make a difference if we have the right programs and the partnerships in the community.
So if they don't hit pre-K and they don't have the opportunity to get that early learning, and they get in high school and they fall between the cracks, which some do. They do in all of our systems, in every system known to womankind. So it's going to happen. One thing we've done in the workforce system is to intervene in the school, and we put a workforce coordinator in 3 high schools in the Lehigh Valley so that we can begin to assist and help the educational system, because we get the widgets when they come out. So we want to make sure that they are, screwed on correctly before they come out of the educational system. So we enter the educational system and stay in the room with the guidance counselor and talk to them about where are the jobs, what are the skills, what are the educational requirements, and what do you need in order to move on. And then some of those kids then we fund to go to the community college or the career and technical school to kind of, give them a help. We also spend over $2 million a year on out-of-school youth programmings. So we're looking at those kids as they're leaving school with not the skills they need to grab them and try to get them before it's too late, before they're way past the time where they think it's cool to continue education or to look at something else. But I think the other thing in the workforce system is what we've done is we have built a system, not just a program. So when Mary or Harry, they're going to come to us for a job, because no matter what, they still need money. So they're going to come to us for a job, and then we're going to kind of, then we have them. Then we can assess them. And then we can kind of talk to them, and we can give them a case manager. And then because it's all based on work, and we can give them a work experience, and we can give them remediation, and we can send them to the community college or the career and technical school. So we can take a holistic approach with that individual and keep them for a very long period of time. And that's in many cases what they need, where they have a place to come to every day that's maybe outside of an educational system, where we're working with a resume on them or a brief, or teaching them how to do some interviewing skills, making sure they have their math is up to a certain level, their reading's up to a certain level, in a different environment, for if it doesn't work at the community colleges or it didn't work for them at the school. So there are many tiers, I think, within the Lehigh Valley that really addresses what you're talking about. It's getting them to come in our doors.
Does anybody have some organizations that they are working with that can also help to address this question? Lenore? Oh.
If I could just real quick, just to elaborate on the role of the Workforce Investment Board at Allen High School and at Deerf High School, we've established separate college and career center rooms in the building with dedicated college and career counselors that are the people that they go to. This is their full-time job, but the Workforce Investment Board has supplemented that with one of their own employees. We call her the jobs lady, and she is invaluable in terms of working with students who they just don't even know what they need. They know they want a job, they know they want to be successful, but they don't have the soft skills that they need to interview. They don't have a resume that's ready to go, and that's something else that they can go to right in the school. And then once they experience success with that, word spreads like wildfire. And those kids are lining up. That lady is there until 6, 7 o'clock at night, working with the kids to make sure that they have the skills. So it's a tremendous partnership, and the physical location is ideal for pulling in people from all over, whether it's the workforce or colleges and universities.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you. And thank you so much for bringing up such a great question. Phyllis Alexander, if anybody knows her, was in our office at United Way, and she brought up a similar question. And I said, Phyllis, quite honestly, I've watched a parade of people come into our offices who are interviewing for jobs, and very few people were people of color. And I kept thinking, why? We put this out across the Lehigh Valley. Why do we have so few people who are actually interviewing? So it's a great question, and it's one that we look at United Way. And being the head of marketing and communications, I get to take all those plot points and all that data points and somehow make it into something that people can understand in a really short soundbite, which is really hard to do because we have people like Cassandra Amato, who's our data specialist, who goes, but Lenore, you can't miss all this, and there's so much intricacies. And I'm like, yes, but when it boils down, what are we saying? When you say that 62% of the kids at William High graduate, how many of those, what's the percentage of kids of color? Because I know it's a lot lower, right? So how do we capture that data? How do we talk about it? How do I talk about it as a marketing person and not offend or upset anybody? But it's the truth. And the one thing that I would be remiss if we didn't talk about our community schools with your question. Community schools are a model. We've identified 12 that we currently have funded. We have 22 on track at United Way. What's great about this is we come into a school and we say, okay, you, coordinator of community schools, you identify all the problems that are going on. You pull out those kids and those families, and we support them. We surround them with mentors, with tutors, math, science. Jane works closely with us because we have to grab those kids early. Birth, pre-K. We get them into kindergarten. So the kids that, when they hand them a book and they hold it upside down, and the students, or the teachers say, really? We have a long way to go. So we have to grab them early. So the community school model is working. And the coolest thing that I've seen lately is Mark and Cassandra, Mark Riddle, who's also our head of community impact. Cassandra pulled me into the room and they said, look what we're doing. We're creating a tool where we're going to put together a group of adults. We're going to identify students. We're going to identify them in 3 basic areas, and then we're going to give them their own specialized program or plan to get them back on track and be successful. So that is encouraging to me. When I saw that, I said, hallelujah. Those kids, we need to identify them, the ones who are falling through the cracks, the ones who aren't getting the specialized attention, and we need to elevate them so we can get them into career and colleges.
Thank you. Next question. Leah, Carol, maybe? Carol, up front.
Thank you so much for this discussion. My question is about how you see, what opportunities you see to bring other folks into the fold, into this conversation, to build more support for the work that you're doing. Because in addition to doing the day-to-day stuff, you also have to, try to bring in folks that are going to mentor and folks, businesses that are going to contribute to scholarships. We have companies here, we have PPL, who's great, and we have some other ones that are sponsors, but what are the opportunities that you see to reach out to more business folk, to get contributions from them to support some of this work, and to also get bodies to be able to mentor? And I know Jane does a fabulous job, but I just want to hear from you about those opportunities and the challenges that you see and what we could be doing more of.
Thanks a lot, Carol. Great question. And plug for your boss. Senator Casey is a huge advocate for early childhood education, so thank him for that. We've formed in the Lehigh Valley something called the Lehigh Valley Early Learning Coalition. This is a group of business leaders from across the Lehigh Valley who are doing 3 things: advocating, taking action, and awareness. I couldn't think of the third A. And the idea is to connect the dots between the 4-year-old who's in a preschool classroom today and the employee in 15 short years. It's very difficult for the CEO of a company to think about the impact that a 4-year-old has and why they should pay any attention at all to that. But they are figuring it out that it does have a huge impact. So the Lehigh Valley Business Early Learning Coalition has brought the business community together with the help of Nancy's group to make sure that the connection between early learning and jobs of the future is there, and they're aware of it.
I think to tackle that on a couple different fronts, one to the United Way aspect of having a community school person in the building that is able to handle some of those requests. I'll be very honest, I get a lot of emails in a day and phone calls, and if I can delegate them to that person, that is tremendously helpful. So having that helps a whole lot. That said, I don't want to discourage anyone from reaching out. I know that we get lots and lots of opportunities. As I was discussing with some of the people in the room, we have programs in place, after-school mentoring programs, after-school tutoring programs. We're always looking for committed individuals that would like to help with those, particularly people from the business community. If they are interested in coming in to speak, to share, to run a workshop, we're open to all of those things. One of the things that I was hoping to get from this is to establish some connections. We do a lot with the Workforce Investment Board in terms of prepping the kids for the skills that they need to go out to the job. What we need more of are what are those skills that the employees need on the job, and how can we relate that, how can we integrate that into our existing curriculum? Because we don't have a lot of time for extra add-ons. We need to find a way to work those into our curriculum, and if businesses are able to sponsor or to produce professional development opportunities for teachers, if they're able to aid with curriculum resource development, those are some really good places where I think we can make a strong connection to what the community, what the businesses need, and what our students are getting. I think we've done a lot of work with that. Kids hear all the time, well, you'll need to know how to do this in college. So that's in the class, but not as much so that you'll need to be able to do this in the workforce, other than cooperative learning and communication skills and those sort of things. So we definitely want to get them involved. I would also put a plug in if people are looking for financial support. I know the Allentown District has a foundation that funnels donations through teacher innovation grants, and people could connect in that way as well. I know other districts are looking to establish or have already established similar foundations. So it's not that you have to just drop off a check at the school and wonder where it goes.
I think those are all great examples. And I would just add that we try to do as many grant opportunities and initiatives as possible. The recent one is the $10 million TACT grant, and that's a federal grant which allowed the 3 community colleges to partner for a host of businesses in the 7 counties regions that we serve. And so those are opportunities to bring in the business community, to get their input, to have them involved with the colleges that then they can carry forward with, whether it's curriculum development or the mentorship opportunity. So I think together we're all trying to look for those type of initiatives well to give back to our businesses.
I think the other point, Carol, too, is everybody wants money. Do you know what I mean? There isn't an organization, if there's any in here, that doesn't want some employer to contribute something to them. There isn't anyone up here that isn't asking for money from the employer base. Right now we have a better opportunity because we have skill gaps. And once you have skill gaps, all of a sudden they'll go, I'll play. I'd like to get in that career and technical school. I might be able to have a piece of equipment that I can donate because, the product line coming out of the career and technical school has to meet my standards. So we're utilizing this time right now to have business step into education as much as possible. Because what did I tell you? I have 11,000 employers with 9 or fewer workers. How much time do you think they have to spend at your school? That's the problem. Do you know what I mean? We have a lot of small employers. Look at Lori's here from Air Products. What does she do? She's an educational queen. She's everywhere she can be with her company and giving us opportunities to get her staff and the people at Air Products into education and looking at educational models, new models of education, like Building 21, which is what we're trying to model. We're all doing that together to ensure success for the long haul of this. But everyone's after money. We also have 83 community-based organizations? More than that. We have more than 83 community-based organizations with a building, staff, secretary, a funding thing. Do you know what I'm saying? So we have to look as community-based organizations how we can integrate that so we're spending more money on Harry and Mary than we are on buildings and staff and those kind of things. I know it's a hard issue to talk about, but I talk about it all the time because I believe we have to do something about it. So I could go on forever. Goodbye.
Thanks. Go, Leah, wherever you want to head back to. Yep, Bill.
I got lucky. I was right next to the person with the microphone. This is less of a question than sort of a plug and an awareness, and I think answering your question. This metaphor of sort of a throughway with various on-ramps and off-ramps that take you from pre-K all the way through a job. One of the off-ramps that leads us solidly into a dead end and doesn't have a way back on is prison. And there's a piece of this report that talks about racial inequality in our criminal justice system. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the answers to the question you raised. I'd like us to consider ways to eliminate some of those barriers to get those returning citizens back on the highway with healthy, productive jobs. They're later in life. They have gone through a lot, but they also have a lot to offer. And I think we need to break down some of the barriers, the prejudices that we have around returning citizens, re-entering the workforce, not just for their sake, but for the sake of their children, who then are influenced by what happens to them, and then it goes back to the beginning of the pipeline. So it's not a question, just a plug.
But can you, Bill, I was just going to bug Bill a little bit to just talk a little bit about the kinds of things that your organization does to help to complement all the things we heard about from our panelists.
Well, we're trying, and there's the mental health system, and there's all that, but the barriers are really, really high. And just like Jane said, she serves 12% of the kids that are eligible for Head Start. We're probably reaching 2 or 3% of the people in that system that really could use the support. So getting us up to scale in these high needs areas for that, it's a relatively small number, but they're taking up a whole lot of our resources. And if we could divert some of those resources, we could show a significant savings down the road if you invest in them up front. Think of the money it takes to put somebody and keep somebody in jail for a long period of time.
Yeah.
If you can prevent that and spend that money better early on in life or in some of these other things.
You can spend $8,000 for a Head Start kid in a classroom per year. You can spend $25,000 for a person to keep in the jail for a year.
Right.
Two issues going on with the prison. We're working with Northampton County right now, writing a grant to open a workforce center right in the prison. So we think that kind of integration is going to happen. So we're working on that right now. And I was surprised to learn as I was doing getting the data ready to write this grant, that we served in the Career Link in the workforce system last year alone almost 1,500 people that had criminal backgrounds. So sometimes you don't even know it, and you have to deal with it and work with them. So, and also there is a running list of employers who do hire workers that have criminal backgrounds and are willing to give them a second chance.
Thank you.
From my perspective, for those students that are in high school that may commit criminal acts, we are working with the criminal justice system and also the APD to lessen the severity of consequences that might be imposed on them, whether it's opting for a youth panel or some sort of community service. And I don't know if there's anyone from APD in the room, but Chief Fitzgerald has just reached out to the district to set up student panels to help improve the community, the student relations with the police department to hopefully reduce that concern.
Excellent.
Sorry. Also, Mayor Pulaski has joined the other mayors across the U.S. in the ban the box on the application. So we're involved. Believe me.
Yeah. Can you just say more about that?
No.
Ban the box?
Not much. We just started the process. We want to eliminate the box on applications that say if you have a criminal background or a criminal record.
Oh, okay, awesome.
In addition, former Chief Roger McLean, who's now with the District Attorney's Office in Lehigh County, is also one of the leaders in a statewide group called Fight Crime, Invest in Kids. And these are police chiefs and district attorneys that go around the state talking about the importance of starting early to fight crime.
Great. Jessica?
Hi, so I'm Jessica Adams Skinner, and I'm Director of Community Health at Lehigh Valley Health Network. And clearly I know what we're hearing is that it's all about social equity and social inequality. And I know that a lot of us in the room, we're doing everything in our power to help move the needle. In our department, I mean, we do have like an asthma initiative in the as Allentown School District and in the community. We have a dental sealant program also in Eastern and Allentown School Districts. Teen pregnancy, telehealth, what have you, the list goes on. But it's clearly not enough. There are many nights I go home and I still think, oh my God, am I really making a difference? Could I be doing more? And so when we did this survey in the Allentown Promise neighborhood, we know that there are 245 kids between the ages of 0 and 5. We need to get them through the pipeline. We got to start now. And the thing about it is, while we're addressing a lot of issues, even in high school, with the mental health and what have you, until you actually go to these kids' homes, you don't even know half the story. This is what we hear in the community. I go with sometimes with my community health workers, into some of these parents' homes. And the issues are in the home itself, whether it's the intimate partner violence or a child who's sleeping on a wall that is laden with mold. And all the other issues, the mice drop-ins, the what have you, these are all issues that impact a child's ability to learn. So education, yes, everyone is saying it. It's not about just education. It's education, it's health, it's mental health, it's everything also, on a continuum. So we need to get those kids, we need to put a face to them and follow them from pre-K all the way through the pipeline. Because what's happening is that somewhere along the line, we keep losing them. We saw on the graph, how could you tell me from 8th grade to 11, that steep decline? Something is going on. Something is very wrong with the pipeline. And I think we need to look at that more closely.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody want to comment on that? All right. Leah, go ahead. Wherever you want to go next. Thank you. Yes, thank you. We got somebody in the back. Yep.
Back here.
Hi, thank you. I'm Tara Gilligan, and I teach women's and gender studies. So my question is about the gender gap that came up earlier. And I was struck, Nancy, when you mentioned a skill gap that gives employers an incentive to come in and get involved in a program, and that can be a way of closing certain kinds of gaps. But I wondered, what is it that closes a gender gap? And is that something that we only deal with or only think of once we get to your end of the table, that is to say, once we get to the workforce level? Or is this an issue that in some ways can be addressed earlier? Right, I know that there are interesting studies about the ways in which girls and boys learn, and we see more, one of the charts in the book shows more women than men in higher education, right? And yet we still have consistently lower wage earning by women, right? We can see in the Lehigh Valley that this is really pronounced and has really significant impacts in so many ways on children, right? And so that starts a cycle, and then that gets us back to this end of the table. And what do we do with the children of low earners? So I don't have a specific question really, but I wanted to see if there's something that we can talk about solving that gender gap as well. Where along this way do we do that? And do we do it at multiple steps?
Can I interject something?
That's a very difficult one. Pardon me?
I was just going to interject something from last year that maybe will give you a chance to think. So last year in this report, my indicator was looking at the science PSSA results for the science test, which are administered in 4th grade and 7th grade. And what was very interesting was that when you looked at the 4th grade results across the 17 school districts, that girls perform better, again, on average, at meeting proficiency than boys. But then the 7th grade results were inverse, and the boys were doing somewhat better than the girls. And so I asked the group last year, if you remember, I said, what's happening with 7th grade girls? And somebody jokingly said, 7th grade boys. And, okay, that's, some of that is true. But to me, that was very pivotal to say it's not just the boys. I think for me, it's that self-esteem. We start to see the body development, body awareness kinds of things taking place. So it's happening at that early age. And then, from my perspective, it's carrying over into the workforce.
I don't think a gender gap is an issue in preschool. You really can't, the kids do not do any kind of separation at all relative to gender. So that says to me that they're learning this later on. And then it becomes out of my control, so I'll pass the microphone.
I need to look with a little bit more detail because I think that actually flips again for my 9th grade Keystone Biology scores as well. And I think we see, as was depicted in those graphs up there of the higher percentage of females attending the local colleges and universities, that when I look around my advanced placement classes and dual enrollment classes, that they are a heavier percentage of female students as well. So there's certainly doing well academically in those settings. And I know one piece that we've been focusing on is trying to increase their exposure to those STEM-related fields, with them being a hot topic, and hopefully a good avenue to good paying jobs that women traditionally did not avail themselves of. So we've done some programming and connections with Girl Scouts and other local agencies to attempt to expose them to those careers, and although maybe get them out of that mindset of you're an excellent student, you're going to go on to college, but now you have this real broad range of careers that you have opportunities to participate in.
You're absolutely right, and I don't have an answer, but I know that we at L-Tri-C have a program that we've started recently focused on young ladies to come together and have an opportunity to meet with them, and we talk about it. And you do see the need to build that confidence and self-esteem through a host of ways so that they believe in themselves. Yeah.
And I don't think we're all at fault up here on the podium. Do you know what I mean? We look at homes, and it starts there. You go into schools, and you see it there. You see how teachers teach to boys, how teachers teach to girls. I mean, it's not a fault. It's just how it is. Do you know what I mean? So we see it there. We work all the time with the Girl Scouts. We've created like career linking academies for just girls so that we can pump them up. I mean, it's a matter of pumping them up, but it's not only pumping up the girls, it's making sure you have the parent or the mother, because we can pump them up, but they go home and they're not so pumped up anymore. So it's a matter of the environment of all of the children that we're talking about too sometimes. So it's an unending battle, I guess is what I want to say. There are so many community-based organizations that focus on girls and young teens and everything. We're doing a lot of stuff. I don't think we found the magic bullet. And the magic bullet is what I always go back to when I talk. It's a holistic approach to every single individual. And how do you take that person and get them on a career pathway and give them a template and give them all the tools they need to get on with their lives? And how do you do that when you have a family that might not want that for them?
And this is an issue I'm really hot about because I have two daughters who are in high school right now, so I'm just going to say one more thing that really had me hot this week. So my freshman, Liberty High School is doing fabulous things to try and get students not just into the pathway of college, but also into the pathway of careers. And this year, this Monday, the ninth grade female students had the opportunity to go to Lehigh to attend a STEM day. So they were going to spend the whole day, just girls, ninth grade Liberty girls, talking about careers in STEM. So before they went to the event, they all gathered in the auditorium, and they got a little preview of getting them pumped up for why having a STEM career is so awesome and going to college to study STEM. The person who gave the presentation only showed them slides of men in science. They were only slides. And this is my astute ninth grader noticing this, and her friends. It was the day after or very close to International Women's Day. Never mentioned once that. Okay, maybe give him a break for that. But he never showed a single slide. And then when they got to Lehigh, it was kind of the same experience. So she came home to me, and she actually wants to be an agricultural engineer. I don't know how she got that out of my family, but because we're not farmers, and we eat really poor food. So she was pumped. And we were like, yeah, you go, you have a great day. She came home completely deflated. So I guess my point is that it's cultural, and that it's, what you hear every day in the AP physics class at Liberty High School. The professor, again, smart guy, has up pictures, just a famous male physicist. I go to the parent-teacher conference, and I say, where's a female up here? And he's like, oh, yeah, I've been meaning to do that. No, those pictures have been up there since 1984, because I went to high school here. You haven't changed those pictures. So, it takes all of us. It takes a societal change, in my opinion, to happen before we're going to see this kind of wage equality. So, just my 2 cents. Leah?
Hi, everyone. Sorry. I'm Amber Zuber. I'm the director of the Landis Community Outreach Center at Lafayette College. So I have this really unique job at Lafayette where I get to send students into many organizations, mostly in Easton, and they work with all the different populations that have come up in the room. From pre-K, we have partnerships with the Nurse Family Partnership for pregnant and parenting teens. We have programs in Northampton County Prison, so we're in the senior centers. So I have this really unique vantage point, and we have over 200 students volunteering in these programs weekly, regular, the same 200 students every week. So they have extended time to build relationships in the community. So it's my job, I think, to educate them about what that means. The other part of my job is related to the Office of Intercultural Development at Lafayette. We recently spearheaded an intercultural competency certificate program. It's a co-curricular program implemented by our Dean of Intercultural Development, John McKnight, and I'm on his team. And I think what comes up for me as part of this conversation is our own responsibility to educate ourselves about our own biases, right? So the way you have an understanding of your Black identity, right? You got it. And it's not because I'm white and I'm in the majority, I'm not required to think about my white identity, right? Because no one demands that of me in the way that our society demands it of you, right? So I think it's my job to educate our students at Lafayette, many of whom come from very privileged backgrounds, about what that means and about how their own understanding of identity influences the resumes they look at before you even get in the room to interview, right? And how our own biases impact that. And I think until we can do that hard work, it's tough to move this needle. So I don't have a question per se, but I think the heart of my work is really challenging our students to understand their positions of privilege and how they might use that beyond their time at Lafayette to make real and lasting and significant change, in addition to helping, like, the 7th grader pass the science test on Friday. That's important, right? But we're talking about more systemic things that need to be addressed.
Very quickly. I think what it boils down to in many instances is diversity sensitivity, not just in correlation to race, but economics, religious background. Why are we different and why is that okay? Which is actually part of my dissertation. It's fine that we're different, and it's fine to recognize. It's fine for me to look around and say, wow, there was one other Black lady in here. I think she left. So I'm alone. It's fine for me to recognize that. It's okay, but it's not okay for me to say, wow, I'm alone. Probably no one wants to hear me talk. I'm at a disadvantage. That's not what's okay. But we have to start to be comfortable saying, I'm the only Black woman in the room, and that is okay. And I think we tiptoe around it. When the statistics were being read earlier, all the men at the table were like, oh my God, don't look at me, Black lady, please. I'm so uncomfortable. I'm not uncomfortable. It's the way that it is. But it's because we need to have some diversity sensitivity so that we can do what we're doing right now, which is laugh at that for a second. And now let's turn around and find a way to fix it because we understand it. And that's what I think is important. So your work, that's why it's important, and I commend you for it. Michele.
I mean, I think we focus a lot on the stuff that seems like something we can do something about, right? Like, how can we raise their test score? Okay, that's a thing I can work on, how I can educate them better. How can we get the employer who's looking at the resume to not give Joe and Jose a different shake when all the skills are actually the same? So, I mean, that's the thing that interests me, and where can we make that difference? Or Joe and Jane, or Joe and, so those names just on the resume all by themselves. There have been so many studies, whether they get the job, what funding they get in a lab, all these sorts of things. And that's, I think, what you were saying earlier about it's a cultural thing, and you were saying that it's a cultural thing. And can we get that into the K-12 a little stronger?
Yeah, very good point. We have to wrap up soon. Do you guys have some thoughts? Or
My thoughts on that one. One is that, Nancy, you can work with the employers on that one. But afterwards, I'd love to catch up with you because I've experienced some diversity sensitivity training as an administrator. but it's one thing that I would like my staff to experience some more. I think we're very accepting of different cultures and different ethnicities, but we don't look at any underlying biases that we might have, especially regarding achievement. And it's one thing that I try to communicate to my staff of the importance of having high expectations, but I believe many of them may believe they have high expectations when, in fact, they're ready to make excuses. And so I think that's something that we can work on at a professional level with the staff, but also from the perspective of students, to be able to identify that. And as you said, that you need to make no apologies for who you are, but you need to expose yourself to live up to your full potential regardless of your background. So I think that's an area that we can work with our students on, and I would be willing to work with the people in the room on that.
Certainly, we can all work on that. I think, Dave, did you have a last, or Nancy, were you going to say something to that point? I was. Go for it, and then Dave, and then
I think two issues we look at as far as populations of employers would be the population from the Greater Lehigh Valley Chamber of Commerce, and call them to order on what are you doing for diversity training and making sure your employers are aware of that. And the other organization we work a lot with is the Society for Human Resource Management, and they do a tremendous amount of diversity training. They even have a diversity conference. So we all try to support those things and go there and send key personnel, and I know we send our staff all the time to diversity training. So I think that's a key. The other thing we do is, because we know this is an issue, is we do success stories and we highlight those. And we don't highlight them in the office. We highlight them to the chamber members and the SHRM members, and to let people understand this is the look of a skilled worker. That's what it is. This is the look of a skilled worker. I don't care what color they are.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave, last takeaway?
Sure. I wanted to talk a little bit about and it was touched on before, about some sort of content differences that affect these gender differences that we've been talking about, and that is the economic impacts. I work for the Da Vinci Science Center. I'm the Senior Director of Science and Strategy there. We know that STEM jobs in the Lehigh Valley, this is data from the Brookings Institution, pay at the associate's level nearly twice as much as non-STEM jobs. And so thinking about the pathways that we're talking about, one of the pathways towards higher standards of living can be through recognizing that we do live in an increasingly technological society, and we really need to think about how we're moving our youngest students. Jane's got a really powerful program started with the Newton School on getting very young children engaged in STEM, and I think this is really important. And I think we really have to think about how we can expand those impacts. It's not just for us at the Science Center to be doing these things. We want to see kids all across the valley engaged in these powerful activities. The other note that I wanted to touch on was about poverty, and it's kind of a challenge to think about this. Maybe we can think about this differently. I think we tend to accept that poverty is inevitable. That we have this 20% poverty nationwide, and we have about that, I think, in the Lehigh Valley, and that's just something structural about democratic economies that we can't do anything about, but it's not. And most of the countries, when we compare ourselves constantly on these educational yardsticks, and we say, oh my God, look at Finland, look at Hong Kong, look at even Latvia and Estonia and Turkey and Mexico, and why are we not measuring up? And one of the big answers to that is poverty. If you look at the countries that are at the top of those educational rulers, all of those countries have far less than 5% poverty in those countries. And if you take out the 20% of American students who are in poverty, the rest of our students are scoring at those levels. If we did not have any poor people in this country, we would be completely competitive with Finland, with Hong Kong, with Singapore, with all of those nations that we keep going, oh, woe is us, we can't do it. The reason we can't do it is that we can't figure out in this country how to structurally address poverty. And other countries have figured that out. And we know how to do this, and we're simply not willing to do it as a society. And my challenge is we can sit back and say, okay, well, we've got to wait for the whole United States society to finally get on the ball and figure this out. And we've been trying this for 50 some years, and it hasn't happened yet, 60 some years at this point, since Lyndon Johnson sort of first pointed the finger at poverty, and people were saying it before him. But can we do something as a valley? I mean, do we have to wait for the country to figure this out? No. Or are there ways that we can work together as a valley to try to do something structurally, politically, economically about poverty?
Mm-hmm. That's a very good point. Do you want to, Rick, go ahead. Yeah? Something different. Uh-huh. Thank you all for staying. I hear the claps in the other room, but we have such a good conversation.
My name's Jan Zaremba Smith. I'm with the Junior League of Lehigh Valley, and the league's been around the valley for some 87 years. I'm relatively new to the Lehigh area, but I'm part of the community impact group for that, and we are a group of volunteers, women that are in the workforce and want to just do something for the community. And so we are in the process of doing something much like the United Way of kind of reevaluating where our focus is going to be, where we can have more of an impact. And I thought this woman over here was talking about businesses and where they can have impact. Well, from a service point, we want to look, and we do some fundraising. We don't have a large amount of funds, but we do some fundraising, and we have a program now in Calypso Elementary with Kids in the Kitchen. That's one of our programs, teaching nutrition to young kids. We've gone to do outreaches to the Boys and Girls Club, teaching about career skills, how to do interviews, etiquette, having the elevator speech. And those are the kind of things we kind of polled our group is, what do you want to be doing? And then trying to figure out where the interest in the group intersects with the greatest need. And education is obviously the area. And so we're looking at where can we partner with people, and where can we have the most impact with a group of women that want to actually provide service. And unfortunately, some of the after-school programs we've had a bit of trouble with because they're mostly working women. I mean, not all of us, but full-time. Mm-hmm. So, I'm kind of throwing it out there and posing a question. Are there any ideas of where our kind of group can fit?
Mm-hmm. Do any of you have some thoughts on that?
I thank you very much, and I think we should talk later about some areas that we could definitely use some help. I would love to do that. Mm-hmm. That would be great. I did want to get back to Dave's point about poverty and tell you of one project that's going on right now in the Allentown School District, and also to thank Dave and Da Vinci for partnering with Community Services for Children on STEM education. I could talk about that for 2 hours, and I won't bore you with all that, but it's great. Right now, we're working on a project called Pay for Success. And this is a project wherein the business community and outside investors put up a chunk of money in order to scale up the number of high-quality early learning slots in a particular school district, in this case Allentown, so that all of the children in the Allentown School District get high-quality early learning before they start kindergarten. It's paid for by outside or inside investors, not government dollars. And savings that are realized to the school district because they don't now have to pay for special ed as much, not as much remediation, and a variety of other savings. Those savings are used to pay back the investors. So it's a process that's happening across the country. Google it, Pay for Success. Yep. It's a fascinating concept. We have a task force here in the Lehigh Valley that's working on it right now. And stay tuned, because over the next couple of years, I think you're going to see something exciting happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Very much. And to your point, your question, I would say if you are engaged in the Nonprofit Business Partner Council with the Chamber of Commerce, that would be a place, I think, where you could field that question and get a lot of people who would give you some interesting responses. And I just want to say, as we wrap up, to Dave's point, I study and teach about inequality in public policy. And so international studies show, as you measure income inequality, that the countries with the greatest income equality are countries that are social democracies, so some of the ones he mentioned, Islamic regimes, and communist countries. So you see the choices there. We could have income inequality, but if we want to have political equality, right, we realize that maybe we don't necessarily want to always have income inequality if it means giving up some of our other freedoms and liberties. But that said, I think what you said is very important for us to all think about. We can't wait for the government to do something. That's my point. We're never going to be a social democracy. I'm depressed to say that, because I would like us to be. we're going to be the capitalist democracy that we are, and that for our lifetimes. So we can't wait for change. We have to create change, which I think everyone here in the Lehigh Valley knows. And so I think, our challenge is to stay focused on the Lehigh Valley, pay attention to all of these very important issues that were raised about cultural competency and just being aware, having that self-awareness. How can all of we bring that into our families, into our workspaces, into our conversations? That's, I think, a challenge that all of us realize, but that we are just realizing now that we need to think about in all of the programs and services we create. So I thank you for raising that today. So anyway, I thank our panelists very much, and all of you. Really, it was a wonderful conversation. So enjoy the rest of your day.